Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello listeners, you're with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're on Big Little Small Talk. I'm not sure whether you're aware, but September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and I have two special guests today. Ian Grieves, OAM, is my first guest, and Ian, unfortunately, is suffering with prostate cancer. Welcome to Big Little Small Talk, Ian.
Thank you very much for having me, Megan.
Now, what was the thing that you said why you needed to come on the program today, and nothing was off the table? You said everything was on the table. You'd talk about anything because why?
Because men have to learn that they're not bulletproof, and they have to talk and they have to listen, things that they're not very good at doing, and they have to go and see the doctor on a regular basis, like once a year, get what they call a PSA blood test. Most of the time they don't go because they think it's going to be the old finger test, not done so much anymore. Younger doctors don't seem to want to do that. And so it's all done by blood test, and it's really, really easy. If you go to see your doctor and the doctor wants to give you some blood tests, you get that one thrown in. From age 40, the government covers the costs, and it's just a matter of getting a blood test and then tracking it once a year just to see the changes. It's not how high it goes, because you can have an infection, and an infection will cause big numbers, but doesn't mean you've got prostate cancer.
What does PSA stand for?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that.
It's just prostate, the measure. Okay.
It's prostate something antigen,
okay.
And it's a marker, and it's about one of the few cancers where you can do a blood test to find out whether you've got it or not. And so it's really being wasted at the moment because men just won't get the flaming blood tests.
Why don't you start by telling me, and I must admit I'm ashamed to say, until I was doing some research for this interview, I didn't really know what the prostate did. What does it do?
Not a whole lot, but the urethra passes through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is responsible for ejaculate and all the rest of it.
Yeah, so it's this is what I read. A man's prostate produces the seminal fluid that nourishes and transports sperm. So for your journey, Ian, did you have symptoms? Did you have any of the usual difficulty with urination or any of that sort of thing?
Yes, urination is the big one, stop-start and things like that. I just thought it was age, and one of my daughters said I should go and get it checked out. And of course I didn't. I'm just as bad as everybody else, but I did have chest pains once. So part of the testing, they did some blood tests for me, and a PSA test was done for that. Now that pretty much saved my life, because I'd had one done 4 years previously, a PSA test, and they were able to. Both of them came back normal, but when they put them side by side, they realised that the second one wasn't normal for me. And so, I was very, very lucky. I didn't even know I'd had a PSA test either time. Yeah.
You weren't experiencing any symptoms at all? Like when you said the stop-start with the urination, so yeah. What does that mean? You'd be trying to do a wee and it'd be sometimes
the urine stream was weak. Was basically it. You'd go stop and then go stop, and while you're standing there, and that was it. That was my only thing. And yet, then when they turned around and did a biopsy, 20 needles of samples they took out, and 16 of them were cancer. So my prostate was mainly cancer at that stage.
And yet you had no pain, nothing at all, no aches in your legs, no back pain.
No, nothing. Back pain is a common one, but I didn't have it. No, I mean we all get back pain, but I didn't have back pain all the time. You might pick up something incorrectly and get a bit of a back pain, but nothing that you could say had anything to do with prostate cancer.
Right, and from that sort of time where you'd first noticed maybe the stop-start with the urination,
Mm-hmm.
how long was it before you went and had a check after your daughter had suggested that perhaps it would be a good idea for you to go?
Well, less than 12 months, and the doctor did the test and all the rest of it. But what happened was that was during the time that Toowoomba had the shortage of doctors, and the doctor actually moved to Canberra, and typical guy, my wife said, "Oh, you better find out about those tests." She said, "Oh no, if there's something wrong, they would have told me," and it did come back as normal anyway. Yeah, it's just that there's no such thing as normal, and I've got the aggressive version of prostate cancer, which has the ability of even masking how serious it is.
Right. Ian, how old are you?
I'm 65 now, and I was diagnosed at 50.
At 50?
Yep.
And what did that involve then? What happened after you got? They realised that those levels just weren't right for you. What's the process?
Yep, straight away off to a urologist, and he did the digit test, and he knew straight away the prostate was hard on one side, so he knew then and there. Sent me off for scans. My prostate was enlarged, but not in any great way, and then they did the biopsy, and the biopsy told them the story. So then it was a matter of I chose to have it removed because of my age. I was young, no use having a dead organ in the middle of my body, and I may have an issue further down the track with urological problems. So I agreed that was the best way to do it for my age.
Mm. And in terms of having radiation, hormone therapy, tell me about all of that. How does that work?
Okay. I was really early. This is 15 years ago. So I was very early, and I had radiation. I had chemo. Chemo at that stage was only for end of life. Nowadays it's right up front with treatment, but then it wasn't. Yeah, so you have to pay for it out of your own pocket. Usual sort of stuff. Once you get cancer, you learn that your health fund that you've been paying into for many years is actually a hospital fund, and cancer is outpatient. So you're out of pocket with just about everything. Yeah.
What about going to work? Like, were you able to
Yeah,
work?
I was able to work. I had to take. I took a couple of weeks off when I had the prostate removed, and then I worked while I was doing chemo. Though the bad week, I would take that week off. I was self-employed, so it made that easy for me. And then radiation, that was no problem at all. That was just I'd get it done and then go straight back to work. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll be tired for 5 minutes and then back in again.
Tell me about taking the hormones and how when do you start on those? How long do you have to be on them for? You were saying before that you've got brain fog now from hormone. You and your wife are two symptomatic people of going through menopause or whatever. Yeah. So tell me about that. What does that feel like?
Okay, when you first start off, they give it at different times. Sometimes it's one of the first things they'll start off before they'll even take the prostate out and things like that to help shrink the prostate. But it's after you've been on it for a while, and usually it's an injection, and it's good for 3 months, and you've got to get it every 3 months. So it's fun. How it affects you? Well, it shrinks all your sex organs. It changes your body shape. Your thighs get bigger. Your boobs get bigger. They say you can't lose weight with it, but I've proven that wrong, and a lot of other guys, because one of the things we've learned, which is really good, is we actually go to the gym, and I go to the gym twice a week. There's lots of things, but we're going worst case scenario because I had the aggressive version of prostate cancer. But if you get in there early, like earlier than I did, okay, then you get to miss most of that sort of stuff, okay. Sometimes it's just take out the prostate, bit of a problem, might have erectile dysfunction for 18 months, 6 months, 18 months. It all changes depending on the person. You may have trouble with urination and things like that for a while, because all the nerves are in shock after the operation and things like that. But then after that, it's like nothing's ever happened. Okay, so the guys that get picked up early are really laughing. It's the guys where it gets that bit later, and that's why it's so important to get that blood test once a year.
Yeah, I read that the average age for someone getting prostate cancer is 70, but you said you were 50. So, was there a history in your family? Do you know?
Prostate cancer and breast cancer are related, which is why the chemo that we use in prostate cancer is the same chemo as used for breast cancer. Sorry, I forgot the question now.
History in your family.
The history, yeah. Well, I found out that I had a grandmother who had breast cancer. So whether it's come from there, I don't know. No male upline from me in my family history has shown up as having prostate cancer. But it means that my son is 50% more likely, and my daughter is 50%, or my daughters are 50% more likely to get breast cancer.
Is that right? That's a scary thought. And perhaps, in generations past, they might have died of something, but people didn't know what they died of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that quite often you talk to guys and they just don't care. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to find out about blood tests or anything like that. They're just not interested. But we are the early warning system for our kids, and they're throwing that opportunity away, which is going to harm their kids. Plus, when they have that sort of attitude, the kids aren't going to grow up knowing what's going on and all the rest of it. It really does damage a family. I mean, you're just throwing things away.
I wanted to talk about that, Ian. I wanted to talk about your fears and your... I remember when my mother had lung cancer. She was eternally optimistic. Next week she was going to Thailand to teach English, and then she died. And she sort of didn't accept the diagnosis, because I think it wasn't really spelt out to her. Do you feel like you've had a really clear explanation, and where you're going or how long you're expected to live, all of that sort of thing?
Well, initially it was 18 months if I did nothing. So I've always gone from the treatment to treatment. I have my GP, I have my oncologist. In fact, I've got about 3 oncologists at the moment. And then I had a naturopath, and the naturopath was good at fixing my body up after chemo, for instance, and getting my blood working properly again, and things like that. Fixing my immune system, really boosting my immune system up. So I've had good people. Plus, I also research, so I generally know what my next treatment is. Okay, because the trouble is most of the treatments run out. They lose their effectiveness after a period of time. Like, I'm on the hormones. I've been on the hormones for 15 years. However, they've really lost their ability to stop the cancer. It's sort of like they say with the little Dutch boy with his finger in the dike. Okay, it'll stop the majority of it coming through, but the strong bits of the cancer will get through, and they're doing the damage. So the doctors don't have any statistics whatsoever of what happens if you stop taking the hormones. I mean, they're guessing that it's a bad thing. And people like myself who are going through brain fog and all the rest of it, you do get fed up with it. But it keeps you alive, and the whole thing is you stay alive for the next treatment, or you know that one day there is going to be a cure. You just don't want to know what that is, you know. So you want to stay alive for that.
So you have felt all the time, you don't have this sort of black cloud hanging over you that you think it's, you know, death is just around the corner, to be brutally honest?
Yeah, well, when you're first diagnosed, and people hear the word cancer, yeah, the brain goes into panic mode, and it just churns. It's looking for a way out, and it just won't stop. People have trouble sleeping, and things like that. The brain just won't. They can't concentrate on other things because the brain just won't stop working, trying to find a way out of the problem. That usually disappears after several months, you know, and you get used to the idea, and you didn't die yesterday, you know. And so we have this knack in the human race that we tend to forget these things. So we can put stuff aside. Like I don't think about the fact that I've been designated terminal and all the rest of it. I don't think about that all day. You know, I've got lots of other things that I do and enjoy and all the rest of it. I'm living life. I travel and I do all the things that I want to do. But it's there. It is mentally challenging. But I'm not a sort of person to let that get on top of me. I'm always looking forward to the next thing that I'm about to do, you know. Yeah.
The eternal optimist.
You have to be.
My name's Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're on Big Little Small Talk, and it's Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and we're talking to Ian Grieves, who is a prostate cancer sufferer or survivor, and he's taking us through his journey with prostate cancer. Let's talk about your family and your wife, and
Yep.
how's she been through the whole thing?
Oh, she's been my support. Yeah. Like I've known stories where it's been the other way for other people, and all this, but in my case, no. Yeah, my wife goes to a lot of the appointments that I to go to because I'll forget what the doctor said or something like that, so she'll be there to pick me up and correct me if I got it wrong, and she'll help me, whatever it is. How does it affect on the sexual side of it, which is what generally people want to know about?
People want to know that, and they don't want to ask, but they really want to know.
I always say when they say, "Well, how does your wife feel?" I say, "Relief."
I don't know about that yet.
But it's one of those things. You've got to concentrate on things, and okay. So maybe you lose one part of your life, but then you gain in other ways. Yeah, I've had 3 grandkids since I was diagnosed. I've done a couple of overseas trips. I don't. I've got more planned in the future and things like that. You can't just concentrate on one area. We're strong, and there's lots of other ways of doing things.
I suppose I'm thinking from your wife's perspective. I'd be really frightened of losing my partner. So for you mentally, like you read the statistics about 72% of people diagnosed develop some sort of mental health disorder, or because it's just, and you touched on before, how do you sort of put it in a part of your brain? Has that been, I know you're part of the Darling Downs support group or the Toowoomba support group. What sort of mental health coaching or counselling do you get offered, or did you take up? Or
you can. I'm ex-Navy, so I've got DVA in my corner as well. I've got a psychologist that rings me up once a week, says g'day, and we have fun and talking and all this. But I don't actually have anything for her to do because I've sort of got it under control. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I'm an optimist anyway. But yes, there is support. And I was saying about going to the gym. The exercise at the gym is fantastic for making you feel better, as well as building up your body and all the rest of it. Plus, we go for coffee afterwards, and so we'll sit around talking, and we understand what each one's going through, and we're there to support each one who's they're just about to have a PSA test to see how their cancer's going, or they've just run out of a treatment and they're just starting a new treatment and things like that. So we're there supporting each other anyway, as well, and we've all been there, done that. Sort of, it's just one of those things. So the support's there. Plus, we have our meeting once a month. New people turn up, and they're all in panic mode because they've just been diagnosed and all this. So we can calm that down because, I've got one of the worst ones you can get, and I've been around for 15 years, and I'm still healthy in every other regard, and stuff like that. So we can make people start feeling better about their diagnosis straight away. I mean, it's a journey. Everybody knows there's a journey. Everybody reacts differently for the different treatments and things like that. And that's the hardest part for them to get their minds around is just because something worked for one person or didn't work for one person doesn't mean it's going to be different for them, the same for them. And so we've all got to support each other and all the rest of it.
I think I love that. We go for coffee and we talk. That's what women do a lot. We talk to each other.
I'm on hormones.
So, is there a support group for families or partners of?
The wives come along. Yeah.
Do they meet separately at all to
No,
discuss
but they
their
can.
journey? Yeah.
They can.
Right.
There's nothing to stop them getting together for coffee and all this. But,
yeah. You mentioned, Ian, that you worked for yourself. What type of work did you do?
Computers. I had computer ambulance.
Right.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but notice you are Ian Grieve OAM.
Yes.
What did you receive an OAM for?
Community history, because for the last nearly 30 years I've been documenting Australian radio production from the 1920s to the 1960s. And I'm working on a book at the moment on the actual radio listener clubs that we used to have, certainly through to the 80s. There's been a few since then, but it's mainly been in that period pre-80s.
Really? How fascinating. And here I am with my little hokey recording device, community radio. So tell me more about that research. What sort of thing is it involves? Listeners clubs. What are listeners clubs? Okay,
well, it used to be that a radio station was your core of your community. Okay, it was all local in those days. And every radio station basically had a women's club and a children's club. Generally nothing for the men. Occasional one, but it was mainly the women and the kids clubs, and so they might be doing something like raising money for Red Cross. They'd be the ones standing on the street with selling cakes and knitting and stuff like that for the various things, but they did it under the banner of the radio club, and they would like they did World War II. They were absolutely phenomenal with the amount of money that they raised, looking after the soldiers, putting together Red Cross kits to go out to the soldiers. It was just amazing stuff. And then you had the kids clubs, and the kids were raising money for a bed in a hospital, or to help the local orphanage, or things like that. I mean, they all had a little job to do in the wider community.
Were each of these radio clubs attached to a particular station, were they? Or?
Yeah, just about every single station. I mean, I can't even think of any that didn't have radio clubs. Yeah.
Right. Up until what sort of era?
Well, they were big in the 60s. They probably stopped around about the 80s. I mean, there's still some going, raising money for Far West children's homes and things like that.
Were you part of a radio club when you were younger?
No.
And what stimulated your interest?
My mum wouldn't let me join because I had an older brother and an older sister, and they didn't do things like the ABC had what they called the Argonauts Club. Now, I used to listen to it as a kid. I listened to the Muddle-Headed Wombat and things like that on the Children's Hour on the ABC, but I wasn't allowed to join the club. But it was the same thing. And I mean, I've got badges and membership certificates and things like that for I don't know. I've got thousands of them, but all all that remains of the clubs and the memories. Nothing was really written down, and that's exactly why I decided to do that.
How interesting. All right, well, I'm going to have to let you go soon, but before I do, I'm going to throw in a couple of curly questions for you. This might be something that you need to think about. So for you, Ian, what's the biggest risk you've ever taken in your life?
Yeah, I'm not a risk taker. I like to think things through and all the rest of it. I don't know, joining the armed forces, I guess. I did it in peacetime. Unfortunately, it remained peacetime while I was in there. Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately?
No, fortunately. No one wants a war.
Right, yeah, interesting. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Still alive. Still alive. I'm on a new type of drug at the moment, which is a injected radiation, and it's not widely available, but it hopefully will be the first port of call in the future, before having the prostate removed and all the erectile dysfunctions and problems with urinating and all this of it. So it hopefully will be number one treatment in the future, and that's hopefully my body is responding to that particular drug. I won't know for another week when I get results of a scan back, and I'm supposed to get about 3 to 5 years out of that drug, but the beauty of it is it doesn't run out. So I can turn around in 3 to 5 years. If the cancer's grown back, I can go again and have it again and again and again and again. So it's as close to a cure as we've got.
So is it a clinical trial?
No, it's not. Yes, there are trials. There's trials like Royal Brisbane's doing a trial at the moment. Peter Mac in Melbourne's doing a trial. So is St Vincent's in Sydney. They're doing trials. I got onto it because I'm with DVA, and basically earlier this year I was sent home saying that that's it, can't do anything more for you, except I knew about this particular treatment, and so I'd been trying to get on to trials. I've been raising money for prostate cancer for ages, and I got quite cranky with the Prostate Cancer Foundation of Australia when I got knocked back going to Peter Mac's because I wasn't from Victoria, and I got knocked back at St Vincent's because I wasn't in New South Wales. At that stage, Royal Brisbane had closed theirs down, and I was sort of stuck in the middle, and I had some rather large metastases in my chest and abdomen, and they were stopping me from buying time. And Wesley said they had a meeting. My oncologist put me up for it, and they just said, "No, he's too systemic. We're not going to do it." So someone put me onto an oncologist over in WA, and he just said, "You're DVA, aren't you?" He said, and I said, "Yeah." He said, I can get you onto lutetium through DVA." And I said, "Well, my other oncologist tried and wasn't able." He said, "No, I do it all the time." He said, "But first we're going to have to knock out those metastases. They're too big." And I said, "Yeah, well, they can't use radiation." He said, "Yeah, but that's because Queensland doesn't have the machine. The closest machine, there's only 2 in Australia. The closest one is in Sydney. We'll send you to that one, and we'll knock them out, and then we'll start you on lutetium." So in May, I had those knocked out, and then I started on lutetium. I've had two shots so far, and the oncologist seemed to think 2 was all I'd need. DVA said I could have 4. They'll fund 4, and then I think it'll be 3 myself, but hopefully that'll work.
What an incredible story. I mean, there's so much going through my head, all about sort of, the sliding doors moment of joining the military, and now that has meant that you've got a gold card and you've funded...
No, I've got a white card for cancer.
Yep. All of that, and if you didn't have that, what position would you be in, and all of that. But
it was only because I was with the prostate cancer support group, and as one of the people there, I went down to Brisbane. We had our own little convention of the different support groups working out things, and I had just had this told this with Wesley saying no. Yeah. So I raised it down there, and that's when one of the doctors said, well, Royal Brisbane's about to start again. They're about to do another thing, but they were doing their trial in a different way. I've been on lots of trials before, which has kept me alive to this stage for other drugs. Anyway, I was very vocal about it down there, that we've got nothing going here in Queensland and all the rest of it. And one of the guys there from one of the other groups said he was a advocate for patients with a particular medical group, and he gave me the name of this guy over in Perth.
Incredible.
And at the same time as I got, same day, I finished with that, and I got a call from PCFA, who took what I said on board about they're the guys, we're raising money for them. They're spreading it out with all the scientists, finding cures, finding treatments and things like that. They're responsible for us getting onto these trials, and the fact that there's so many positions on the trials because they're funding all that in a lot of the cases. Mm-hmm. And they got back to me and told me how to get it done at Peter Mac in Melbourne.
So you're referring to the Prostate Cancer Foundation of Australia, aren't you? Which seem to have certainly an incredible website, an incredible way of connecting you all.
Yep.
I'm going to have to let you go because we have your convener, Cyril, who's going to come in and talk to me too. But I have really enjoyed hearing your story, Ian. And in 5 years' time, I'm coming looking for you to see where you are and what you're up to then. So.
Well, when we go to Bunnings or something like that, we hand out brochures to the guys about prostate cancer. The idea is they don't knock it back. They take it and they read it. They learn something. And that it makes all the difference.
And the message is?
The message is to get a PSA test done once a year. Costs them nothing. And you asked about age before. The youngest prostate cancer sufferer I've heard of, 9. How do you treat a 9-year-old boy?
That's a sobering thought. Thank you again, Ian, for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk. Okay, now you're with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're on Big Little Small Talk, and we're in September, which is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and I was contacted by the convener of the local group, Cyril Curgenven, who is here with me now. Welcome, Cyril.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, sorry to talk over the top of you. You thought it was important that we try and raise awareness about prostate cancer.
Yes.
What's your journey been?
Well, my journey started in 17. I mucked around a heck of a lot, and I had a shadow on my prostate, and Dr. Gleeson said, well, we could be right, mate, but you could have an MRI, and I tossed around for 3 months and had the MRI, and we had a shadow.
What does a shadow mean?
Well, it's in your prostate, and once the shadow is, that is level 3. You've got to investigate on level 3. 1 and 2 is no investigations. 3 is investigation. 4 and 5 is you're in trouble.
Had you had the blood test to start with?
Oh,
was
yeah,
that
I've had blood tests for probably about 20 years, every year, and it's gone from 2.6 up to 6.8. And everyone thought that I would still have been right for 6.8, but when the MRI was there, it was the shadow. So then we done a biopsy in 20, and then we had 5, 6 out of 18 biopsies. We had 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all cancerous. So I was category 8, or Gleason score 8, which was serious. So I went back and saw Dr. Gleason. He said, well, go and get a second opinion. So we went down to see Dr. Nair, I think I pronounced that right, and she said, well, I'm giving you a week, Cyril, because you're so serious. You've got a week to decide, either have it out or go with your radium. And having it out, there was 2 mainly complications. You know, I could have been wearing, as I call it, a nappy or pants, for the rest of my life, and plus other things that could go wrong. So I had the radium for 20 days, and that went well for 2 weeks, and the last 2 weeks I had to go back on a low fibre diet because I was suffering. So the low fibre diet helped me a heck of a lot.
Just explain that. What do you mean you were suffering? What does the
Well,
low fibre diet do?
Well, I was on a high fibre diet for 2 weeks, and then I went and saw the nurse, and I said, look, I'm struggling to go to the toilet and everything like that, and she said, well, go on a low fibre diet with either cornflakes or rice bubbles, and drink apple juice, because I was having porridge every morning and muesli.
Thinking you were doing the right thing.
I was doing the right thing. And consequently, I was doing the right thing for 2 weeks, but the last 2 weeks was in the low fibre diet, so which was good. It helped me, so I was good.
And for you, Cyril, being the convener of the local support group, how did you end up with that job? Did everyone take a step backwards and you were still left standing
Well,
there?
Your previous guest, Ian Grieves, he said to me, Cyril, he said, you got a bit of a go in you. So he said, I'd like you to put your hand up to be convener. So I said, oh, well, may as well. It's nothing else to do, and retire. I've only got bowls as interest, and junior football for Valleys. But then I said, no, well, I'll have a go. And last year I raised $900 with me Bowls Day at the Toowoomba City Bowls Club, and I raised $500 for the breast cancer one in October, and this year I only raised $300, but I didn't have as many people playing the bowls on the Sunday because everyone was playing pennants beforehand. And but and then I've raised money last week with St Andrew's Icon. We raised $545.
What does the support group mean to you and for the other blokes that come along? Like, how important do you think that is for, your mental health, and you feel like someone else is going through the same thing that you're going through, or being able to help someone else?
Yeah, well, the mental health is a big issue, because every new member that comes on the first night, because it's on every third Tuesday at St Anthony's Memorial Street Church, the church hall there. And consequently, when new people come, when I went there, I had to speak first, and I just went through my whole system like I was explained to you, probably a bit more. And consequently, people were saying, oh yeah, that same thing happened to me, and other people said, no, well, this happened to me, a different side of it. And, I learned from that, so I kept on going, but some people only come for a night and they stop. I know one car salesman come from a reputable car business here in Toowoomba, and he only came once, and I felt so sorry for him. I tried to ring him to tell him what a special was on for, for underpants, but he never rang back me. But, you can only try things, can't you? So if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't.
I read that, so you've been going since 2004, is that right?
No, 2001.
And you've got over 120 members,
yes,
is that right?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Yeah, and do you do the gym with Ian as well?
Oh, yes.
Because he tells me he rather enjoys the coffee afterwards and the talking, which I think, finally you blokes are getting onto the power of discussing things, what about I see the Prostate Cancer Foundation of Australia, like their website is incredible, isn't it? Like they're hooking you all support groups up. Yep. They've got advice. They've got online communities. Do you know much about the online community? If you don't want to attend a meeting, how do you hook into the online? You just get on the website, I guess?
Get on the website, because there's one, I think, on the 27th. But you've got to say you want to go, but I've got commitments that day, so I can't get on.
So it's online. I also read that there's a phone peer support group called Mates Connect, which is pretty incredible. So you can get on.
I haven't heard that one, to be honest with you.
That was I saw that one on your site. But the other really frightening thing that I read this morning was that over 25,000 males are diagnosed in Australia per year.
Yes. Per year. And 10,000 die a year.
Do they? And
Yeah.
what is that? Mostly because it's haven't been diagnosed early enough, do you think?
Well, it's a complicated, it's a few things. Firstly, I think is that men just don't talk about it. But once you say you have your cancer, your prostate cancer, everybody comes out of the woodwork. But to get men to speak about it, and I hope anyone listening will have a PSA, if you haven't had a PSA for years, or have it every year, please, because it is so important, because you can go from 2.6 to a 7 in a year, and if that's the case, then you've got problems very quickly. So, and to get into these, Dr. Gleason's, crowd, there's 3 of them up there with him, it takes months to get in there. So, that you're suffering all that time.
Yeah. So, Ian, very much same sort of message, that it's the difference. So you need to have a baseline test to know where you are, and then to know in comparison, whether you said you only went up to a 6.4, and but for you that was too much.
That was too much. Yep.
Was there, Cyril, for you any symptoms at all?
Oh yes, I was going to the toilet about 3 or 4 times a night, sometimes 5. But that was the only symptom. No
pain or nothing.
No pain. No. It was all good.
Right.
I did have blood in my semen, but I spoke to Dr. Gleason about that, and he said he's seeing heaps of people with blood in their semens now, but he doesn't think there's any connection to the cancer. But I've got a book at home that they're saying from Professor Dunn down in Sydney that it could be. So it's possible, but who knows? Probably do more research on it, and then they'll find out.
Has your treatment been fairly straightforward, or?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't get terribly unwell, and are you still on treatment?
I never. Yeah. No. Well, I've finished my last hormone needle this month, so I'm over it now. I can still feel my lump there, which normally it doesn't. It lasts for about a week and then it goes. But it's interesting, Megan, when you first diagnosed and you've got to go in, you've got to have sort of like an MRI tunnel, and the girls give you 3 dots on your stomach, and those 3 dots are where the radiation just hits you, and you've got to have a full bladder, or reasonably close to a full bladder, because that stops the radiation going through that water and going into your bowel cavity. So, and your bowel cavity's probably got to be, at least half empty, or to that, around that way. And even though when I had a colonoscopy, a gastroscopy, because a photo shoot, as I call it, top and bottom, and the doctor told me that I had a burn in my bowel, but he said there's nothing to worry about. So but these things can happen. Nothing's foolproof, is it?
So, have you ever felt, Cyril? Have you ever felt frightened during this whole process? Nothing's.
No. Even when Dr. Gleason told me, I just said, "Oh well, I've got cancer. It's got to live with me, and I've got to live with it. End of story. Get on with it." But that's my mother coming out of me, because she had breast cancer, and she died on the table in Western Australia, and she had to go to have another operation 2 days later, and Auntie Mill called me over and said, "You better get over here in case something happens to your mother." So, but when Mum woke up out of ICU, she said, "What are you doing here, matey?" And I said, "Oh well, they wanted me to come over." She said, "Oh well, I've got breast cancer, so what?"
What sort of age was she?
82.
Right. And what about you, Cyril? What age are you now?
76, 67.
Is the new 67. And your children, are they... Ian talked about the importance of your children, being in a higher risk category now. Are they getting tested for, breast cancer?
I've told my son, but communications sort of are not good. My eldest daughter... I've already told her that she's got to have her breasts, but she has them done every year, so I'm pleased with that. My second daughter, I don't know.
I mean, I'd never heard that prostate cancer and breast cancer are linked. Yeah. When you're at the Bunnings barbecues and you're trying to, or anywhere really, and you're trying to get the information out, what's the sort of the one, quick message you give to guys?
Get yourself checked every year. And if you haven't had one, please, I plead with you to have one done every year.
The blood test.
Just do the blood test. I had a physical examination, and I had horns on my prostate, and Dr. Lee said, "Hey, it should be all right, mate." But that was his opinion at the time. But when we saw the shadow, it was a different kettle of fish. We got ourselves into gear pretty quickly. So, and I could have had the procedure done on 20 at December, but it would have been the old way. So he said, "No, I don't want to do the old way. I want to do the robotic way." So I booked in St. Vincent's, and we done that on the 27th of January 22, and that's when he found the biopsies 5, 6, 7 and 8 out of 18.
How's your interaction with the health system? You've been a private patient as well.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I was DVA. I was lucky out because I had service for 9 years.
Do you have many blokes who don't have private health cover? How's the system in the public
no, well,
health?
they seem to survive with it all right. You pay nearly every visit, from what I can pick up, but then you get your
Medicare rebate.
Rebate. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of that word. Yeah. To get the rebate, so I think, one of my mates down at Bowles, he put in 30,000. He got 26 back, 26 plus, but it wasn't. Yeah.
How do you get on if you haven't got 30,000? I wonder to put in the first place.
Well, I suppose. Well, it depends. I haven't sort of got on that angle yet, but I believe they do their examination over at the base too. So I think that what you can't, if you have not covered on the private, you'd probably go into the public system. But unfortunately, you'll be waiting for a while, I presume.
And that's the worry, isn't it?
Yes.
Listen, we've run out of time as per usual, but curly question for you, Cyril. If you could do anything illegal and not get caught, what would you do?
I wouldn't do anything illegal.
You're not that type.
No, I try not to. No, well,
right.
Wouldn't do it.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken in your life?
Going out and working for myself, carpet laying. I did that after I got out of the Air Force, and I worked for a man. Or when I was trying to save a marriage, I was working. When I was flying up from over in Perth, I'd go and work with him for 2 weeks, just to get my hand back in. And then, as soon as I got out, I went that afternoon and started working with him. And but then when he retired, he said, "Oh well, you got to take over now, Cyril." So I just went in and said to Wayne Ford was the manager of Simon's Carpets then. I said, "Well, I'm taking Clive Foster's job, mate." So he said, "Oh, good, I don't have to advertise."
And the risk proved to be
it was very successful. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I still have customers ringing me up to see if I could do things for him. So,
Do you have those terrible knees? Don't you have to knock the thing with your knees?
Oh, well, I use the power stretcher a lot, Megan. After I had a bucket tear cartilage, I used the power stretcher more often than not. If I got lazy, I would kick it, but then I'd be sore after it for a couple of days, so I went back to my power stretcher.
I'm glad that risk was a successful risk for you. Now, Cyril, do you follow the royals? Do you have a favourite royal?
Yeah, when Queen Elizabeth was alive, but now Prince William, I'd say, and his wife and the kids.
Love watching how well they're developing into the role.
Yes. Yeah, I think they're going well.
Good. And what about the song that can't keep you off the dance floor? Are you a dancing man?
No, not anymore. No, I've never danced from the first marriage breakup. Never danced. I just got something happened in life that it just didn't click again, unfortunately.
Cyril, that is an interminably sad thing to hear.
I know.
You've never danced again?
No. Well, there was a lot of horrible things going on from the breakup, so it just didn't happen.
Wow.
But that's another day.
That is another day and another story, but that's a lovely and a sad answer all at the same time.
Yeah.
So for people to find you locally, they look up the website and they'll find your number, and they're more than welcome to come along to the meetings.
More than welcome to ring me.
Yeah, and come along.
And come along.
Yeah.
I hope they do, because we're getting a few new members now. And, you know, like the Icon Centre at St Andrews is as busy as one thing. And, you know, like this year, it has just risen 25%, you know, which is... you know, a quarter of it's a lot. You know, you don't think of 25% as a lot, but it is. It is a lot of men.
Well, I tell you, I appreciate you getting in touch with me and asking me to do this interview. I've learnt a lot and met a couple of really great blokes. So I appreciate it, and I hope that someone listening makes a phone call and or makes a phone call to the doctor to go and get that blood test.
And also, I've got pamphlets around some of the doctor's surgeries, but I haven't got them all, but I've tried to get some around. So
wonderful. There's no excuses for not having that blood test. No. Cyril, thank you very much for coming in and telling us all about your journey with prostate and bringing in Ian in as well. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure.
And
thank you for inviting us, Megan. I appreciate it very much.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.